History's post-1989 capitalist system. The three parts of the film are epitomized by these three generations of men and the special difficulties and problems they have. And it all involves kind of grotesque and disgusting bodily stuff. Okay, the first part, we are introduced to Vendel Moroshkovanyi, who's a soldier in an isolated barracks. He's basically lives in a shack, and his commanding officer lives in the house of which there's a big house where the lieutenant lives with his wife and daughters. And he lives in the shack which contains the outhouse and where they keep the pig and stuff like that. And he also has a little room there, which is where he stayed. There's a kind of sense in which it's a kind of grotesque relation of the lieutenant is always pontificating at him, giving him all kinds of orders. He's very isolated, he's lonely, he's sexually obsessed, he's always finding inventive ways to masturbate, of which this still is one version. And he's sort of lusting after the two beautiful 20-ish daughters of the lieutenant, who he watches. I mean, there are all kinds of grotesque incidents. He watches them through a peephole, but then he sticks his penis through the peephole and as a way of masturbating, and a chicken pecks it, so causing great pain. He eventually has sex, apparently, with the wife of the lieutenant, who's a big fat peasant type, exterior type, and sort of imagines in the midst of her whether he's having. I could go over in great detail. Probably I should skip some of the details. I mean, the film is available on DVD. But anyway, he eventually gets killed by the lieutenant for this adultery after he has all these kinds of phantasmatic sexuality. But nonetheless, the wife gives birth to a child who is born with a pig's tail. And the whole stuff about there's also stuff about slaughtering the pig. There's stuff about the bathtub in which they put out the entrails of the pig. Is also the bathtub in which Moroshkovanyi has sex with the lieutenant's wife. There's all this stuff about this kind of grotesque form of masculinity and command. He's always being bullied, pushed around by the lieutenant, who, when he isn't indulging in pontifications about the nature of women and desire to possess them, is just giving him all these kind of grotesque orders to do everything. Okay, anyway, so that sort of epitomizes the kind of fascist. And the second one is the son with a pig's tail grows up to become Kalman Balatoni. And here maybe I should try to show you at least a few minutes of. Okay, this is sort of one of the most. This is not explicitly sexual, but it's one of the most disgusting things in the film. But I want to show you a little of it. That's our protagonist from the second part, Colin Powell.
És most, mivel ebben a pillanatban van hihetünk a mérleg állásának, már pedig miért is meghihetnénk a kettes táblán versenyző Krisztó megmegolott maga mögé beszélve, az akármelyik világklasszis kíván duhani lettástolni. Hajszányi Orbán, de beleháltózik a mögé, valakodik álmát. Jövőben szorosan a hozzá másodpercben, hogy visszaidégül. Igen, már eláll a negyedik helyen. A bolgár felszabadítási front 12. lövészezőjének versenyzője nagyon jól bírja az illamokat a két magyar pilótát. Egy pillanatban még nem tudni, hogy alakulhat a végeredmény. Az első hely sorsa már elről, de az elmúlt percekben őrületes hajrán alakult ki a második, harmadik, illetve negyedik helyét. Most az állás jelen pillanatban első Iván Buhari, a négyes pályán őt a harmadik állás a Honvéd címeivel. Hajrá Kálmán, hajrá Honvéd! Aztán Krisztó megfelelő.
point. I mean, I think as a part of the point of the film is, you know, combines, it has grotesque body stuff in all three parts, but it combines it with this kind of social satire. So here we see, you know, a complete recreation of the kind of Soviet bloc, Eastern Bloc, you know, things around sports. You have, you know, the sports are for the glory of the nation, and this competition will prove the spirit of socialism, and you have the young pioneers singing, and, you know, you have this combined with this, the Olympic level sport which we have here is basically, you know, speed eating. So it's like, you know, when they have hot dog eating contests at country fairs, but it's been formalized and turned, inflated into this massive sport, which is the glory of the nation, and so on and so on and so forth. So I mean, I think it's making points about. So this part of the film, like the other part of the film, is making points about this, about the social rituals which exist, about the relation of the individual to the social rituals. I mean, it has to do with this gorging and purging, which you see with this kind of grotesque physical thing, which is a display, which is in public. It's all for the state and for the glory. As it develops, you saw the woman who was cheering. She is the female champion, and Balatoni, our protagonist, and the other male speed eater sort of compete for her affections, and Balatoni eventually marries her. And then there's this whole sequence. There's this whole sequence where they have this kind of parody of cliche romantic scenarios where they go to beautiful spots or to amusement parks, and you know, he's wooing her. But what eventually happens is that they're called to perform before some party functionaries and to give a demonstration of eating 40 pounds of caviar, and this sends her into premature labor. So she gives birth to a child early. The child turns out to be a runt, unlike them. So, I mean, I'll come back to the significance of this kind of allegory. And the third part has to do with the present, and it takes place under capitalist post-modernity. Lajos Balatoni, the son of the previous Balatoni, is a taxidermist. So he has in this rather creepy way, he sort of preserves all these dead animals and things like that. He has a horrible relation with his father, Kamen. The first slide I showed you is Kamen the speed eater. When he just sits. All he does is sit in his chair. He can't really get up anymore. He watches the Olympic speeding contest on television. There's a whole edible thing. He constantly abuses his son for not eating nothing, for not being able to eat enough, for not being able to compete. He's raising cats to compete in a kind of weight competition by feeding them pure lard. What eventually happens is that the father, basically the cats get out of their cage, the father gets disemboweled, eaten by the cats, and the son comes and finds this tableau and determines to turn his father himself into works of art. So he taxidermizes his father's corpse and then develops this device to auto-taxidermize himself in this peculiar way. So he stuffs himself and taxidermizes himself while he's still alive. I should also say, I mean, part of the point is that whereas the father in the socialist regime was the only one who had any kind of relationship to others, which is at all satisfying. It's a parody, but he and his beloved, like he has a relationship. They love each other, even if it's done in a kind of tacky, cliched, kitschy way. It's definitely real. Lajos in capitalism, he has no friends. He lamely tries to pick up the woman who works at the checkout counter of the enormous supermarket where he buys the lard for the cats, and she just, of course, ignores him and continues doing the checkout and tells him how much everything is worth.